Two guys, two different opinions, one very low price. It's free! Welcome to the Cerebral Sessions. Hey, what's up out there, all you cerebral people? Thanks for tuning in to another edition of the Cerebral Sessions. This is my little solo project that I'm going to be mirroring against cults. And like we say, two guys, two opinions, but the cost to you is free. And so, yeah, you're welcome. You know, it's what we do. But really, it's what we like to do. It's what we love to do. So I'm glad to be a part of this. And to start this whole thing off on my end, I want to do some critical thinking segments. And so this first session, titled Critical Thinking Skills Part 1, right? Very creative. I want to get into your minds like that, I want you to really think about that. But in all honesty, critical thinking is so important, not just for this podcast, which you're going to hear us say a lot of catchphrases like keep your brain warm, and if it's worth thinking about, it's worth talking about, because those two things are, they're very true if you think about them. But critical thinking is very important in everyday life, especially when we're dealing with so many different opinions and people and nefarious types and the manipulation that is ever present in life, really, but in our culture. And I'll get into some of that here in just a moment. So today I want to discuss the importance of using critical thinking skills in reference to the media, including news, television programming, movies, advertising, and much, much more. But before we get into all that, I want to discuss a psychological concept known as the locus of control. This concept may be familiar to some of you out there, to some of you maybe not. So let's delve into this a little bit and see just exactly what I'm trying to get at. Internal locus of control is a psychological concept that refers to how strongly people believe that they themselves have control over the situations and experiences that affect their lives. And that makes sense, of course. When you talk about the locus of control, it is basically where the control is located at, right? And so internal locus of control obviously would be that which you have internalized. And so using critical thinking skills is very important in relation to the locus of control concept. For instance, if you believe that the successes, in your life, as well as the failures, have been in large part a result of your own actions, then most likely you have a strong internal locus of control. If you're the type of person that believes that outside forces are the reason for your successes or the blame for your failures, then chances are you possess a predominant external locus of control. The notion of one's locus of control is crucial regarding the concept of critical thinking because of the importance of understanding the nature of any given issue and its effects on our reactions. So keep in mind that in order to think critically about a given situation, we need to look at both the internal and external forces that are shaping our worldviews and hence our responses. And those responses, as you can see in the climate that we live in today, especially with the proliferation of the media, can be pretty intense. And so it's important for us to monitor ourselves and to look within ourselves, as well as outside of ourselves, in order to, develop and maintain the best sense of responsibility that we can based on the given situation at hand. So let's look at the news for some examples first. The political landscape is usually quite divisive, and if you think about it, it always has been. But it seems even more polarizing nowadays with Trump in office. Or do we agree on that? And I think that's something that we can all come together and agree on. But oftentimes it seems that people, especially on social media, tend to turn on each other rather than focusing on the deserving targets, which, of course, is the politicians themselves. This is a classic divide and conquer technique that has been used by the rich and powerful since the beginning of the rich and powerful. It keeps the populace bickering over sometimes trivial issues rather than focusing on the fact that we are being robbed blind. This manipulative tactic succeeds because enough people become emotionally charged by the issues or, of course, by the politicians themselves, which keeps the attention from the deserving targets. This tactic is even more pervasive with the proliferation and constant barrage of the 24-hour news cycle. We are shown police brutality, racially motivated crimes, and other countless forms of chaos that keep us on the edge of our seats. So naturally, these visuals breed emotional responses from us and develop within us a worldview that shapes our reality. There's a lot of material here that I could reference and how it is designed to manipulate our psyches, but I will save that for a deep dive later down the road. What I want to mention here, though, is that there are the external forces which, on the surface level, are out of our control. And, of course, there's no denying that. We have a very polarizing president who, whether you voted for him or not, is in the most powerful office in the world. Nothing that neither you nor I can do about that at this point in time. And it would be easy to blame our discontent on this external locus of control. The same could be said for the riots, the wars, and all the brutalities that we see on the news. But we still have a choice as to how we respond to these external factors, and hence, we find our internal locus of control. We have a choice to name-call those who support issues and politicians that we don't agree with, or we can educate ourselves and have a discussion with those people. Keep in mind that critical thinking is required in order to appropriately facilitate such a discussion, because if you simply regurgitate a talking point you heard on television or, dare I say, the social media, then you have not done the proper work in order to enact any substantial change. The media relies on people acting as parrots. So this parrot behavior helps to fuel anything and everything that the media wants to use to further its agenda, and it bleeds over, of course, into many formats. Have you ever watched or seen pictures of a fashion show? They are nothing short of ridiculous, and this is supposed to be what is cool. If the fashion industry says it's stylish to wear a lampshade on your head, then I would just about guarantee that you would see this trend take hold. This type of parrot behavior also happens within many other facets of our culture, including the mainstream music, movies, and television industries. So speaking of the television industry, has it occurred to anyone else out there that television programming must be a major factor in the psyche of almost everyone in almost every walk of life in our society? News programming aside, people watch so much television today that binge watching is a thing. Right? Billions of dollars are spent in advertising, and there seems to be no slowing of momentum, but instead, rather, more technology is created to make sure this grip that the media powers maintain becomes greater and greater. This is what I refer to as the great babysitter of our society. Still, this in and of itself is not the primary issue. The genesis of the issue points back to our own locus of control. We allow the hypnotic babysitter to lull us with its magical entertainment abilities, while as a society we become fat and lethargic. Moreover, this magical box teaches what is acceptable, what is important, and what is funny. I have had a long-standing disdain for the sitcom format due to its obvious programming approach. So let me explain. When watching most sitcoms, there is an overall story that is being told, and that story is littered with punchline jokes. These telegraphed and oftentimes regurgitated punchlines are delivered with an obvious pause for you to laugh. And to help you out a little bit, a laugh track is also included, just in case you didn't know that the punchline was supposed to be funny. In other words, you are being told what to laugh at and when to laugh. So does that sound like you are using your internal locus of control? I don't think so. But keep in mind that there's a lot of psychology behind this as well, because, that laughter is contagious. And so even if you don't necessarily think a particular joke was funny, it is being counted on for you to laugh because you caught the laughing bug, and therefore you calculate the joke as being funny internally. I explained this concept to my wife, and she quickly accused me of attempting to ruin TV for her. And you know what? Maybe that is my intention, because I just don't feel comfortable with this apparent manipulation. But my solution is not necessarily to do away with the idiot box altogether, although I do think that killing the babysitter should be a consideration. But whatever it is that you do watch, be aware of the programming aspect of it. And I keep saying that word programming. And every time I do, I'm doing mental air quotes, because it is programming. It is designed to program the mind of the viewer. So just use your critical thinking skills and never be manipulated so that you lose your strength of internal locus of control. And, like I said, that even goes with comedy. Don't even let sitcom comedies take away your internal locus of control. So now when I think about that, well, if I am watching a sitcom, it's usually not on purpose, by the way, but it does happen from time to time, I guess, if someone else is watching it. I am dissecting that sitcom to such a great degree that oftentimes, even when I do think something is funny, my aversion to the manipulation overpowers any kind of humor that I would have normally felt, and it ruins it for me. It does. But I would rather it be ruined than fall into the trap of losing my internal structure, that being an individual to the degree that I, can still maintain my internal locus of control. And my last point for tonight centers on advertising. Oh, advertising. I could go on and on and on about advertising, but I'm going to try to keep this concise. Advertising has been a significant part of our society for a very long time. The television made sure that everyone was being sold to in their homes, but now, of course, the internet has usurped the TV of its kingship and is now the advertising ruler of the world. I know that most, if not all of you, were doing a little internet window shopping at some point in time and went to check your news feed on Facebook and wondered how the products you were just looking at on one shopping site are now advertised to you in your news feed. I'm also confident that by now you know that this is done by the use of tracking cookies and the internet powers that are watching your every move to see what they can sell you next are always watching you. They're always tracking our moves. But aggressive advertising is no new thing. It is just so all-encompassing now because practically every piece of technology that we pick up and use is connected to the internet. And so by sheer numbers, advertisers just pretty much wear you down with constant images of all the things you need to buy. Unless you decide that you are going to unplug from technology, live in a cave, and never leave that cave, then you will be subject to advertising. But once again, we should use critical thinking skills and maintain our internal locus of control. When you are thinking about buying a product of some kind, I want you to think about where you first became aware of the item. And that's going to be difficult to do because we see so much advertising all the time. But I guarantee you that it is worth the time and effort to try, just because it is an exercise in critical thinking, and it will make you sharper. It will cause you to analyze advertising more often, and so it's not quite so unconscious and sometimes even subliminal, that those advertising, even the jingles and things like that get into our heads, just be aware of them. That's the first key. Also utilize some smart shopper skills like, can I afford this? Not just do I have the money in my pocket right now, but will I have enough money to reasonably sustain myself in the near future if I do buy this product? Do I really need this item, or is it merely being sold to me as a cultural trophy? Of course, there are many examples of that, like anything from a new watch or a shirt to a new car, maybe even the house that you want to buy. Also, will this item make my life easier to the extent that I can justify the price? And will this item potentially help me make more money? If we are investing in a product that we feel like has a pretty good chance of a return of our investment, then obviously that takes priority over something that is simply for pleasure, or especially if it is to please others. And so these are just a few of the smart shopper skills questions that I ask myself now. And you can use those too when contemplating any purchase in your life. Utilizing these questions will help you maintain your internal locus of control, though, because this process will force you to think critically about your behavior. But try to keep in mind the insidious nature of advertising and realize that the motivation behind a majority of those who are selling these products is simply making money. And it's not to make your life easier. It's not to make you look better. They simply want your money, and so that in and of itself goes back to my aversiveness to manipulation. I do not like being sold to, and I know we're constantly being sold to, and at some point in time, I'm going to be sold something that I actually want and actually need, and that's okay as long as I'm using my critical thinking skills in order to delineate what I actually want or need versus what I think society thinks I need, or what I'm being sold to, whether it's pressured sales or what have you. I just want to make sure that I'm doing it for the right reasons, and in order to do that, the best way to do it is to utilize your internal locus of control. As consumers today, many of us have lost our locus of control to external forces telling us what to buy. But in the end, remember that we still only have ourselves to blame. Even though it may be a manipulative tactic and we may have felt the pressure to buy something, it is still our behavior and it's our choice. And so it's not that these external forces have taken away our internal locus of control. Rather, it's just that we have lost sight of that control. And we need to make sure that we are internalizing that control and utilizing our critical thinking skills in all of these different facets of our society and our culture. So that's about all I have for this edition of the session. So in my next episode, I'm going to discuss critical thinking skills part 2, okay, which will focus on issues of assessing morality. So keep in mind that my intent is not to sway your morality. It's not to even really convey my own, but rather it's an exercise. It's to exercise our understanding of how we approach issues of morality. I think it will be interesting to do this exercise, and I look forward to you being a part of it with me. And I hope you all will join me in this collective expansion of understanding both the internal and external forces that drive the cerebral mind. See you then, and please, please, don't forget to keep your brains warm. If there was any way